Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Vivian Vance was one of those actresses from the early days of television that never really got the recognition she deserved, most likely because she was so darn naturally effervescent on screen that most people must have assumed she wasn't play acting at all. That and having to live under the shadow of the greatest star the medium has known. How was Vivian Vance reminded? She is going to hell every day. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Best known for her role as Lucille Ball's sidekick on the hit 1950s sitcom I Love Lucy, Vivian Vance was a world-class actress and comedienne in her own right. She wanted to be a serious actress on the stage, and while she did her fair share of strong performances, treading the boards, she couldn't escape being Ethel Mertz. Though the role of Ethel on the classic sitcom brought Vance fame, if not fortune, it also robbed her of her identity. "When I die, there will be people who send Ethel Mertz flowers," she said. In this candid, revealing bio about Vance, fans will meet a vibrant woman who little resembled the frump she made famous. Long before her television career, Vance was well known as a sparkling comedic actress who worked with major stars including Jimmy Durante, Ethel Merman, Bob Hope, Ed Wynn and Gypsy Rose Lee, and who carried on passionate love affairs, some during her first 3 marriages. When she married for the 4th time, it was to a man 12 years her junior who had been involved in a 20-year relationship with another man. The marriage was, by all accounts, a happy one. Plagued by crippling bouts of depression, Vance was one of the first celebrities to speak openly about mental illness. Though her television image was of a bubble-headed matron consistently led into bizarre situations by her wacky red-headed friend and neighbour Lucy, Miss Vance was a woman of wide-ranging intellectual interests and enthusiasms, whose literary judgment was highly regarded by her husband, publisher John Dodds. She was a tireless worker for mental health and had served on the board of the National Mental Health Association and had been active in other philanthropic and civic organisations. In this video, fans of I Love Lucy will be taken with the behind-the-scenes stories of the show and its feuds and friendships. One of the most surprising nuggets is that Lucy and Ethel didn't get along off stage. Those who wish to meet the woman who created Ethel Mertz are unlikely ever again to mistake Vance for her alter ego. Here, a look back at the life and times of the woman who started out as Vivian Roberta Jones and transformed into Vivian Vance, the star along the way. Born in Cherryvale, Kansas, she had a brother and 4 sisters. Her family moved to Kansas, where she started taking drama lessons and eventually fell in love with acting and later studied drama under Anna Engelman and William Inge, long before he became a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. Growing up in Independence, Vivian Jones's love of acting offended her mother's religious sensibilities. Vance grew up with a supremely religious mother who reminded her every day she was going to hell. Much of this explains Vance's own sometimes hardened exterior to others. "You want to be an actress, trying to lead men into sin," she snarled. "You are going to hell." Maybe that's one reason why young Miss Jones felt she'd better change her last name. But even Vance had theatrical roots. It was the surname of a budding playwright Vivian had come to know. When in 1927 road press agent Joe Danek came to town touting a touring production of George Abbott's Broadway, Vivian got chummy with him and got in the show. They were married for 18 months. The little girl never could please her mother, and though her eventual success did get her mother's attention, Vance always believed her mother never approved. As a teenager, she began sneaking out of the house after curfew. Vance couldn't please her mother, so it's understandable that she'd end up working alongside a woman who, for her own professional safety, was never pleased with her. She moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico to work as an actress. Her work in the community theatre there paved the way for her travel to New York for her study. Her early work with the Albuquerque Little Theatre was of such quality that a benefit performance was held to send her to Broadway. However, instead of doing Shakespeare as she had planned, she wound up in the chorus of the Oscar Hammerstein-Jerome Kern musical, Music in the Air. Vance had a difficult time on Broadway, often cast as a second or third lead. She had similar luck in films, making a total of 4. One night in 1951, when she was playing in La Jolla, California, production of The Voice of the Turtle, television director Mark Daniels was in the audience. He was there with film star Desi Arnaz to determine whether Vance would compliment Arnaz's wife, Lucille Ball, in the new television series I Love Lucy. Vance was cast and catapulted into fame as Ethel Mertz, one of TV's most famous sidekicks. She was honoured for her work, receiving the first Emmy Award given to a supporting actress, and would receive 3 additional nominations during the run of the show. When it was time to look at I Love Lucy, you make sure to look at all the rumours that have surrounded the relationship between Vance and Ball. For starters, they claim the stipulations about Vance needed to look older than Ball were part of a fake contract written in fun. They don't deny, though, that Ball required Vance to look less glamorous than her, but Ball knew she was nothing without Vance, and the red-headed actress worked hard to keep Vance happy and on her future outings. This isn't to say Vance was perfect. She turned down a significant boost in pay to re-team with Ball because she wanted to be the actress's equal. But when Vance decided to walk away from television, Ball had to go home as well. She knew no one wanted to see Lucy without Ethel Mertz. Vance played Lucy's best friend, and she had an on-screen husband named Fred, who was played by William Frawley. Unfortunately, Vance despised Frawley in real life, and when Arnaz offered her the opportunity to do a Fred and Ethel spin-off series, Vance refused. I Love Lucy was very well received by viewers all over the US. Regarding on-screen relationships, I Love Lucy became a groundbreaking show that would set the pace for future sitcoms. The stars of the show, Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, were married both on and off-screen. Together with their neighbours and friends, Ethel and Fred, they stole the hearts of fans with their comical genius. On screen, Ethel was a devoted and loving friend to Lucy, and throughout the show she would often get caught up in Lucy's hilarious schemes, and yet she would always remain the voice of reason. Fred, the curmudgeonly skinflint landlord, and Ethel became irreplaceable additions to the show despite their unlikely pairing. The close-knit relationship between the couples essentially made the show what it was. Their relationship was so meaningful that Ethel and Fred moved into Lucy's guest house when she decided to move to the country during the final seasons. They even helped care for the chicken Lucy was raising. Frawley is said to have continued harassing Vance as they still worked in the same studio. But despite the show's popularity, the I Love Lucy cast did not always have love among them. Vance and Frawley got along very well initially, but as the show took root, their relationship began experiencing trouble. Vance was deeply insulted by the fact that people had so readily accepted her role as Frawley's wife. She even referred to her co-star as that old man. She is said to have raised her concerns regarding her on-screen marriage to Frawley. Vance reportedly declared that no one would believe the two stars were married. The secret fury actress felt that instead of being cast as his wife, she was better suited to be cast as Frawley's daughter. However, her concerns were valid, as Frawley was 22 years her senior. When Frawley found out about the severity of Vance's comments, he became so offended. Consequently, he often hurled insults at the sparkling comedic actress, and yet their contempt for each other played well into the show. Vance and Frawley's feud became responsible for some of the sitcom's most hilarious moments. Following their constant squabbles on and off screen, it became quite the task to have them work together. Whenever Vance would suggest additional lines to the plot of the show, Frawley would refuse to cooperate. The two hated each other, and they made no effort to conceal that fact. The two never made amends and continued to live on as sworn enemies, even long after the show had ended. Their relationship was so strained that the actress celebrated the day Frawley died. Vance, who had been having dinner with her husband when she received the news, raised her glass and shouted, "Champagne for everybody!" While their rivalry was an open secret in the industry circles, the disdain did not show in their work, except when the script required them to show it. On screen they played an adoring couple. It never was Vance's fault that the two could not get along. Frawley was notorious for his troubling behaviours, which could have contributed to the animosity between on-screen husband and wife. The truth is that Frawley was not a pleasant person in real life. His less pleasant characteristics on screen was a perfect depiction of his genuine off-screen persona. He was as stern and stuffy off-screen as he was on-screen. He had suffered a failed marriage, had a bit of a problem with drinking, and spent a considerable chunk of his life in the same old bachelor's apartment. Frawley's drinking was so bad that Desi Arnaz made him promise never to come to work drunk or miss a show before they began shooting. Thankfully, Frawley kept his promise. As if by design, Frawley's other career successes always seemed to be followed by a fallout with his colleagues. This pattern would explain his fallout with Vance. By the time he was landing the role of Fred on I Love Lucy, he was long considered undesirable to many in the industry, and thus I Love Lucy became the career saver for Frawley. After the show ended, there were rumours that a spin-off, Fred and Ethel, would be coming up. However, Vance had had enough of the old man and ultimately refused to work with him again. Frawley was eventually featured in another hit sitcom, My Three Sons. Still, the bad blood between him and Vance continued, and Frawley is said to have continued harassing Vance as they still worked in the same studio. In contrast, Vance's relationship with Lucille Ball was one of a kind, although Ball had several issues with Vivian Vance's initial appearance, and one of them was her co-star's fake eyelashes. It was said that she ripped them off of Vance's eyes and then told her that only she couldn't wear those types of lashes. She and Lucille Ball were close friends on screen and off screen, but Vance's husband, Philip Ober, was so jealous of their friendship that he told his wife that Hollywood was gossiping about her being a lesbian. And since Vance was very conservative, she ended up going to therapy because of the incident. Having met on the set of America's favourite show of the 50s, they developed a close-knit friendship that spanned decades after the show ended. They seemed to make decisions that often mirrored each other. A perfect instance is when Ball decided to divorce her husband of 20 years, when Vance was also divorcing her husband, Phil Ober. But like all friendships, they had their trying moments. At one time they were mad at each other and did not speak for days, but unlike with Frawley, they reconciled and were happy to have their friendship back. Their friendship carried on into their other project together, the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. The production ended in 1960, but even then the two continued being close. Their lifelong friendship was cut short when Vance passed on from cancer in 1979. Ball remained by her longtime friend's side up until a few days to her passing. Vivian had hard knocks, so did Ms. Ball, so did Mr. Arnaz, so did Mr. Frawley. What's exceptional about Vivian is not that she had the hard knocks, not that she was a victim, but look at what she did to overcome them. In 1976, Ball was celebrating her 25th anniversary on television, and back then in Variety professionals would take out ads about other people they admired. So in the issue devoted to Ms. Ball's 25th anniversary on television, this was Vivian Vances' ad. Dear Lucy, you made me what I am today, and I'm satisfied. Love, Viv. And she meant it. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit our Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Vivian Vance? The fact that Vance held her own next to the incomparable Lucille Ball proves just how talented she really was.